Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brianna and this is For Pause in a Book. I make book and lifestyle related content, so if that's something that you're interested in, make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below. Today I'm going to be seeing if the Goodreads top romance books of the year are really all that great. Midpoint of the year, Goodreads put out a list of the top 12 romance books according to Goodreads. And a lot of this plays into like publishing and things like that. And that's a whole nother conversation about like what actually makes a popular book. We talk a lot about it at the end of the year when it comes to the Goodreads Choice Awards. This is kind of just like a sneak preview of that and like basically being able to see what's going to be on the Goodreads Choice Awards at the end of the year. This is the midway check-in. So they put out a list of 12 books that either are like the most read, the highest rated, or like the most shelved, which doesn't make a lot of sense because that just means that people want to read it, but the amount of books on my want to read shelf that I don't even remember exist is quite high. So I don't necessarily agree with this metric, but that's a whole nother conversation. It is the metric we are using. So we're going to talk about the 12 books. Now, when you first look at this list, there's a lot of things that stand out. One being they're very hetero. There's only one sapphic book. I don't know how many of them are bisexual characters because as of like this list coming out, I had only read 2 of the books on this list, and they were the ones that were sapphic and the one with a bisexual character. There is that. It's also very white. There is a lot of white authors on this. So this is like a very cishet white list. There are only 2 authors of color on this entire list. So what did I do? I decided to read all of them. And it's been a lot of cis white straight romances and relationships. I'm going to be giving you guys a synopsis of all of these books in top to bottom order that Goodreads has it on, and then we're going to go to the vlog portion of this video where I will be ranking these books how I think they should be. And I'm sure that they will be different. The most popular book, according to Goodreads, in the romance genre, is Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This doesn't surprise me that this is on the top because it's Colleen Hoover. She's like taken the book world by storm years and years and years running. So I'm not surprised by this. This book is her newest release, and it is about a woman who gets out of prison, and she was pregnant in prison, and so she had her baby in prison. And then the baby was taken out of prison, obviously, and given to the custody of the paternal grandparents. And now she's out of prison. The baby is 5 years old, I think. And basically she's trying to get back in touch into her life. And then there is a romance with someone else in that town. Colleen Hoover is very much known for like her very serious stories and like a lot of family dynamics surrounding the romance itself. And this one was, of course, no exception. Number 2 is Emily Henry with Book Lovers. This is her 3rd romance book, and I've seen such mixed reviews of this. Like, this book is either 2 stars or 5 stars. It really is like, it's very much all over the place. And this is like a rivals to lovers romance. This woman goes to this small town with her sister. She's a literary agent, and apparently this town is like the setting for one of the books that she is trying to work on and edit. And then also this other editor who is like this grumpy guy also ends up in this town as he is trying to edit this book as well. And so they end up having to work together on it. It's Emily Henry. There's no question as to why she's up on this list. She has gotten, like, she's won the Goodreads Choice Awards for romance before, and Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation were both very popular books. So there's not really a question as to why this one's on this list. It'll be very interesting because, again, this was either 2 stars or 5 stars, and we'll see where I land. The 3rd one, another super popular one, is Tessa Bailey with Hook, Line, and Sinker. This is the 2nd book in the Bellinger Sisters series, and this follows It Happens One Summer. It follows the younger sister. A lot of people have said that this one is not as good as It Happens One Summer, but this follows Hannah and Fox, who were 2 characters in It Happened One Summer, and they kind of have this like start of like this budding friendship. So it is a friends to lovers. Fox is this like playboy character that like no one really takes seriously. Number 4 is a testament to how important TikTok is in publishing these days, and that's Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Square. This is the only indie published book on this list. So again, another like lack of diversity there when it comes to traditional versus indie publishing. This is a small town romance with a grumpy sunshine relationship. This girl comes into this small town basically trying to chase her sister, who is not a great character. And she ends up getting stuck in this town, and then she ends up like having to take care of her niece. And then this like kind of like head of the town is this grumpy man, blah blah blah. Obviously we're gonna have a relationship there. This one is over 550 pages, so very long. It's one of the ones that's on Kindle Unlimited, but again, like this one went viral on TikTok. TikTok is doing its thing when it comes to marketing. Number 5 is the first author of color. That's Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. This is a book about like a TV show type, like Dr. Oz type character, except an actual sexy man, but like a TV doctor. This book I think is gonna have a fake dating. Basically she will be gifted her inheritance if she gets engaged. She's very traditional Indian parents, and so they want her to get engaged, and they will give her her inheritance, and she needs it to like buy a house or something like that. I think she meets this like Dr. Prem Varma, who is the host of the Dr. Dill show, and so they end up like starting a fake engagement. So should be a lot of fun. Again, there's definitely a conversation about this being one of 2 authors of color, and it being like number 5 and it being the first one. Number 6 is Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is about a weather, like a meteorologist and a TV show sports reporter that are trying to get their bosses back together, who is like the head meteorologist and like the studio director. And the atmosphere at the building and at work has been very strenuous and very taxing, and so they decide they're going to get their bosses back together, and in the meantime they get feelings for each other. This, despite having you can't tell on the cover, does have a plus size male character, which you don't see a lot in romance. I'm really excited about that. But yeah, I haven't read anything from Rachel Lynn Solomon before she had the X Talk. This is introducing me to a lot of new authors. If I do like the authors, I'll be able to go back and look at their backlist. Number 7 is a surprise because I didn't realize it would be this far down, but that is Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. This is their new book, and this is a second chance romance that takes place in Utah, which really excites me anytime a book is like in Utah. And this has like a Butch Cassidy type adventure mystery in it as well. Like they're hunting for a treasure. It's a second chance romance. This girl, her father owned a ranch, and he was a ranch hand when they were teenagers, and then he ended up having to leave, and then they meet up on this like trail searching for this treasure again. Number 8 is One Night on the Island by Josie Silver. I have not read anything by Josie Silver. I think she tends to lean more like women's fiction than romance, so this is interesting that this is on here, and that's kind of the case for a couple of these. This is about a girl who like books this exclusive hideaway to like kind of have like a mental health reset, recharge kind of thing, and then another guy who also ends up accidentally booking the hideaway at the same time. That feels like a romance trope. Like that feels like there's only one bed type of thing. So I don't know where I'm going to stand on this one because like I said, she tends to lean more into women's fiction than romance, so it'll be an interesting look into that. Finally, at number 9, we have Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. This I read, obviously, like a long time ago, and this is my favorite book that I have read all year, so in my personal ranking, it's going to be really hard to beat, but this is the only sapphic romance on this list. This is about Delilah, who has to come back to her hometown to photograph her stepsister's wedding and all of the shenanigans, and then she meets Claire, who is a bisexual single mother, and they have this little budding relationship, and I love it so much. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about this one. You know that I love this book. Number 10 is another author that tends to lean more into the women's fiction, and that's The No Show by Beth O'Leary. This is about 3 women who get stood up by a man on Valentine's Day, and unbeknownst to them, it's the same man that's standing all 3 of them up. I've actually never read anything by Beth O'Leary. She had The Flat Share, which was super popular on BookTube a few years ago. And I've heard really mixed things about this one. So a lot of people have really loved it, but some people have not. All right, and then number 11 is The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa. And this is, I think, a sequel to The Worst Best Man. Not necessarily a sequel, but a companion that has like kind of the same characters. This is another book that is a fake dating. He needs a partner for his promotion, and she is trying to find a date to a wedding or something like that. I don't really know. Heard really good things about her other book. Again, haven't read it. And then rounding out number 12, the other book that I had previously read, and that's Electric Idol by Katie Robert. This is the second book in the Dark Olympus series. This is the Eros and Psyche. This is the other character that's bisexual. She's also plus size, so a little bit of diversity and rep there. This has already been super long, so let's just get into the vlog portion. I am coming to you because I have finished my first book of this project. Thank goodness. I'm realizing that I have a lot of romance to read over the next couple of weeks. It's fine, don't worry about it. I finished Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. I really liked this book. I'm giving it 4.5 stars. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's really good, and I really had a good time reading it, and I understand why this would be a popular book for Goodreads. Now, it's probably a popular book just because it is Christina Lauren. I mean, like, every single one of their books ends up on these types of lists, either at like the midpoint of the year or the end of the year. So, like, it's always in the running for a Goodreads Choice Award. I don't think it ever wins it, but it's in the running. But yeah, I really liked this one. Despite it being in Utah and not like being accurate necessarily, it was like hidden enough that, and it was like niche enough and kind of vague in the sense where like it wasn't bugging me even as someone who lives in Utah. Plus the author's note at the beginning, it's like, FYI, this is not accurate, please don't take this route, you'll die. So yeah, I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars. I liked it. It was fun. It's definitely like a summer romance read, like a book that you can take to the pool, that kind of thing. So for that reason, I understand why it's on here, and I approve. As far as like ranking them, obviously it's not Delilah Green. Like, I don't think any one of these books is gonna beat Delilah Green. Is it better than Electric Idol? I think it is. I think it is better than Electric Idol. So we'll put it second. So yeah, there's that. So for my next book, I am starting Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This is one of the ones that I'm the least excited about, which is why I wanted to get it out of the way. Also, it was on Kindle Unlimited, and the Kindle, for some reason, the Kindle Unlimited also has an audiobook. I don't know how that works. I've never read a book that way, but I'm liking the narrator for it. So I'm about 20% of the way in, and it's not horrible. I mean, here's the thing about Colleen Hoover. She doesn't write terrible books. It's just like they're very hard to read, so you have to be in a really good headspace for them. Unfortunately, she doesn't believe in triggers, so you don't know what headspace that's supposed to be unless you actually like do your own research. Which is one of the reasons why I don't like Colleen Hoover as a popular romance author. People will find this at Walmart or Target or the airport and not necessarily understand that, like, oh, this is probably not a book that you need to read if you are depressed or having anxiety or whatever the case may be. So anyways, I'm in a pretty good headspace today, so I feel like I can read it. I would like to finish this today. I think that the audiobook on 2x speed will be about like 6 hours. So if I'm if I really push it, I might be able to finish it today. So we'll see. But that's the next book that I'm going to read. So far, it's okay. I'm seeing where the book is going. If I get it done today, then I probably won't check in until I am done with the book. So hopefully I can talk to you this afternoon. We are back with an update. It's actually been like several days since I have finished this book, but that's fine. I forgot to film this. I finished Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover, and I am so surprised that I actually liked this book. Who am I? I was so convinced that I wasn't going to read any more Colleen Hoover. I was just afraid that, like, you know, she was too hyped, right? She's overhyped. I wasn't going to try to get into her works. And I was like, well, it's on this list. I'm going to read it, okay? And I really enjoyed it. First off, I don't think that the conversation about trigger warnings is as apt with this book because I don't think that she has as many in this one. This book isn't trauma porn. Like, so many of her books are trauma porn, and it's just like one after another thing is going bad with the main character. And this one I just felt was really realistic. I am giving this 4 stars. So if we do look at our tier ranking, as of right now, this one is sitting in 4th place. However, I don't think it's going to end in last place. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. There is trigger warnings, obviously, for death of a loved one. Her boyfriend does die. And there is kind of this graphic description of how he dies, or at least like the car accident that they were in. So that is a little bit triggering if that's something like that you need to know about. Know that there is a letter where she like talks about it in great detail. But yeah, other than that, I really liked it. I liked all of these characters. I thought that the book was just very nuanced, because of this situation where like she's trying to get her daughter back, she's trying to get back into her daughter's life, and then she's also like starting this romance with her boyfriend, her dead boyfriend's best friend. There's so much nuance in that like human complexity that not one person in this situation is 100% right or wrong. And I think that she really maneuvered through that really well. So that's really exciting. So the next book that I am going to be reading is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. This is the one that I'm actually probably the most nervous about, just because I watched Chandler's vlog and she really didn't like it, and I can't remember exactly why she didn't like it. So we will see what I think about it. I think it's also really long. So I'm actually going on a plane today, so we're gonna probably just read it on the plane because I can't go anywhere, and see how far I can get into it. Hello everybody, let's discuss. So I read 300 pages, over 300 pages actually, of Things We Never Got Over yesterday. A lot of that was on the plane, but then I also was reading during some sprints yesterday. I weirdly like this book. This whole project has been a surprise, but honestly, like, this might be the biggest one. This is better than Reminders of Him so far. Is it too long? Probably. It's almost 600 pages. Like, why is a romance book over 600 pages? There's a lot of like family drama and stuff going on too. But the thing is that we are at like 55% and we've like solved a lot of problems already. So I don't know like where we're gonna go from here. Like, it feels like it should be closer to the 75% mark. Like, we're about to enter that like final 3rd act breakup, but we still have half the book. So I don't know where we're gonna go from there, but so far I'm really liking it. This book reads so quickly. The smut is really good. I wouldn't say it's like god tier, but like also I've been reading a lot of Katie Robert, so like it's definitely like not on like Katie Robert level like spice, but it's good. It's well executed and things like that. Like, I'm not cringing while I'm reading it. So yeah, I'm really liking it. My biggest complaint, and I was talking to Rye about this because she really wants to read this book and it's on her TBR, and I'm thinking like she's gonna give it 5 stars. Like, this is a 5-star book for Rye. My only complaint, I'm really picky about my Grumpy Sunshines, and there has to be like a reason for it, and we haven't figured out his reason. Like, he's just grumpy for the sake of being grumpy because it furthers the plot line. And the other thing is that he'll turn it on and off very inconsistently whenever it suits the plot. If it were me, like if I were in Naomi's spot, I would have told him to fuck off more than once, because he's very hot and cold. He'll like, be very into her, very like, very obvious about being into her, literally tell her, oh, you're not my type, but I can't like, I have to be around you, blah, blah, blah. And then like literally the next scene, he's like, go away. And that just, it feels weird, and I don't know. But that's just me, like, who puts up walls. So anyway, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to finish this tonight because I do have some plans this evening, but we'll see. I mean, I should be able to finish it by tomorrow if I can read that quickly. Yeah, I'm liking this book. I don't like the cover. I think this feels like way more women's fiction than it actually is, though. So that's another conversation, though. All right, I'll talk to you later. I am actually here to talk to you about 2 books that I have finished in very short succession. I was kind of reading both of them at the same time. One was audio, one was physical, so we're going to talk about both of them. The first one I'm going to be talking about is Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. When I talked to you last, I thought I was going to love this book. I was enjoying it. I liked it more than the Colleen Hoover, but we quickly went downhill after about the 65%-ish mark. And it wasn't saying anything that the story necessarily did wrong. It was just, it got boring, it got repetitive, and I think that there was just like too much in the plot. This book was 570 pages, and that is way too long for a romance. Too much goes on when that book is that long. Less is more. That's the moral of this book. So I ended up giving it 3 stars. So it is going to be sitting in the last place behind Colleen Hoover. It had potential, but I think that if we would have taken out like even like 1, maybe even 2 of the subplots, it would have worked better, I think. I don't know how much of this is spoilers, so I'm going to put a spoiler tag here. So there was a subplot with the sister being like this criminal kind of thing where she ended up coming into the town. That was the whole reason why she came into the town. And then like she stole her car and her money and this other stuff, and it just like it kept happening, and a bunch of stuff happened, and then like she got kidnapped eventually. It was weird, and I think part of the reason why that storyline was there is so that she was able to like meet her niece and start like working on the guardianship of her niece, which we would have had the same effect if like maybe the sister died, right? Like it didn't have to be I don't know. This is me trying to rewrite a book. Ended up giving it 3 stars. It's sitting in 5th place out of 5 so far. Let's talk about A Hook, Line, and Sinker by Tessa Bailey, because this one by far is the biggest surprise that I have had on this list. I gave this book 4.5 stars and I absolutely loved it. It was so close to being a 5-star read. This is my favorite Tessa Bailey book I've ever read. Yeah, it has friends to lovers trope, which is one of my favorite. And it really has this like interesting discussion on like toxic masculinity and how putting that on a boy at a young age really messes them up later in life. And, you know, Fox is just like, he's been pigeonholed into this, like, portrayal of being a playboy, and it was just like, it came from, that's how his dad was, and so that's how his mom treated him, and that's how teachers treated him, and so because of that, he was just like pigeonholed into this, even though he wanted a real and lasting relationship with Hannah. Fox is a sweet cinnamon roll, and he just needs to be protected, and I loved it. So yeah, this was definitely my favorite of the Tessa Bailey books that I've read, which is really weird because I think that a lot of people didn't like this one as much as It Happened One Summer, and I will say it's not as steamy, but it's way more angsty. So as far as ratings, this is not Delilah Green level, but I think it's gonna pop into a 2nd place and bump Something Wilder and Electric Idol down. No one is more surprised than I am, honestly. I was kind of not looking forward to reading this book. Hello, so the next book that I am reading is Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I talked about this book a little bit already, but this book is essentially these 2 co-workers at a news station. They're trying to get their bosses back together. They were married, like the bosses were married, but now they have this like very, not great relationship, this tempestuous relationship, and they're trying to get them back together for like the sake of peace in the office, because they work together. I'm about halfway through this, and let's talk. So this one is probably my least favorite at the halfway point. I've considered DNFing this book, but there are actually 1 or 2 books that I am less excited about to read. So I don't want to like DNF a bunch of books in this video. So we're going to try to finish it. It's super quick. I have a bunch of sprints today, so I should be able to finish this today, theoretically. Let's talk about why I don't like this. First off, it is single POV romance. I've talked so much about why I don't like single POV romances. I'll link my video up above where I talked about that. I don't know, like she kind of feels a little annoying, a little bit pathetic almost, and then he feels like a cardboard cutout because he doesn't have a POV. So because of that, like I don't care about any of these characters, right? Because it's obviously like the 2 characters that are trying to get their bosses together, like there's a romance between those 2 people. Obviously, like that's how this is working. I also feel like there's a big talk about depression and mental health in this book. The character suffers from depression. And while I like that representation, so please don't get me wrong there, I feel like it's not done super well. I think that it's almost trying to explain depression to people who don't have depression. And so like as someone with depression, it feels like it's almost mansplaining. Like that's what it feels like. I know it's not mansplaining because it's a female author, but like it feels like I'm being mansplained too. And I don't love that. So it's not great right now. It's definitely going to be in the last place spot so far, because it's worse than the things we never got over. That's the word. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. It might get better in the second half, but that's where we're sitting here right now. So I'm gonna get back to reading. I have finished Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I don't have the book with me. I think this is going to be the most controversial opinion of probably this whole video. I'm only giving it 2.5 stars. I didn't love it. And the reason why I say it's really controversial is I talked about this one on my book haul and then my vlog, and everyone seems to love it. And I didn't love it. I will say, because I think it originally, when I first started talking about this, I thought that the mental health and the depression rep was a little bit underdeveloped, and I believe I used the term mansplained. That's just, it's what it felt like at the beginning. It really felt like it was being explained to you as if you didn't have depression. But it's 2022. We all do. Here's the thing, and I was looking at some of the reviews, and I think I understand why people love this book. It's one of those very specific mental health representations, and I think that if you resonate with it, like, you're gonna resonate with it, right? You're gonna really love it. I just didn't resonate with it. It didn't feel like it was relatable to me. There were parts of it, and I will say that towards the end it did get better as far as the representation, so I will give it that. Honestly, my bigger problem with this stemmed from the fact that it was single POV. And if I've said it once, I've said it 100 times. I hate single POV romances. I felt like the guy, Brent Russell. I've read a lot of romances. I am gonna get my names mixed up. Russell, or Russ. He was such a layered character, right? Like, he was dealing with these insecurities of being plus size, which is another conversation, which I'll talk about in a second. He's plus size, he's a single dad, and so he has all of these, like, insecurities on, like, how he should go about dating in general, and how he should go about like, telling women that, like, hey, I have a kid, and then, like, the sex scene was really, honestly, awkward. But there was, like, he was very insecure about his body and himself. So if we had chapters in his head, or we got to see, like, you know, how he was dealing with it, and we could struggle with it along with him, I think that it would have been so much better. But instead, the only time that we even know that it's happening is when he tells her, and then we get to deal with it based on, like, how she reacts to it. And so I don't think it was as powerful. So that's frustrating, and it's a bummer, and I think that this book could have potentially been, like, a really, really good book. Back to the conversation about being plus size. We do not see enough plus size representation when it comes to men in romance. We don't, in general. We don't get enough plus size romances in general, but we really don't get enough plus size romances when it is the man that is plus size. So I really appreciated that. What I did not appreciate is, based on this cover, you wouldn't know that, right? Like, this is such a plain kind of cover that, and it doesn't say anything in the synopsis that he's plus size. So, like, you don't know that that's a thing until well into the book, right? Like, I didn't picture him as plus size at the beginning. It wasn't until, like, he started saying something that I'm like, oh, well, that, I mean, it's cool that we have that representation, but, like, why don't we put it on the cover? Are you afraid that people aren't going to pick it up because he isn't a athletic, super fit dude? I know that's not technically the author's fault. Usually they have very little say in what the cover looks like, but it's definitely a criticism. My next book is another controversial one. I am about 10% of the way into Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is another one that I have seen, like, pretty much 5-star reviews or 2-star reviews for. Obviously, I am on chapter 3 or something right now, so we're not very far into it. I don't really have any opinions on it, but I have heard some pretty mixed things about this one, so we'll see how we do. Yeah, I'm gonna go. I am realizing that this video is gonna be very, very long, since I still have 5 books left. So, anyways. Talk to you later. I'm actually here to talk to you about 2 different books because I DNF'd The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. Part of this is just because it didn't feel like a romance, and when I was reading some reviews about it, did definitely feel like it was leaning more into women's fiction. So that being said, like, this book has to be down at the bottom because this isn't a romance. So that's where this one's going to land. I DNF'd it like 50 pages in. I have so many books to read for this that like I wasn't enjoying it. And it was like, you were just basically learning about these three women, and they didn't really have a lot of like difference between the three of them, so I was getting really confused. So DNF that one. And then the other one that I want to talk about is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I liked the book, but again, it's not a romance. This book, like the main story, is about the 2 sisters. And we only have single POV. Again, I'm definitely learning this, and this video has like stressed that I don't love single POV romances. And I think that if this book would have been like sold and marketed as a book about 2 sisters, it actually probably would have been better and probably better received. But the people that are giving it 2 stars went in thinking it was a romance, and it's not. The male lead, I feel, was really bland and just not as interesting. And again, it's because we didn't have this POV. If we would have had like, you know, been in his head at all, we actually might have enjoyed this. So even though I rated this higher than Weather Girl, I am going to put this one down below Weather Girl as far as like ranking, as far as romance, because again, not a romance. Not a romance. I have 3 books left. I don't know which one I'm going to start next, so I'll leave that to future Bree. Hello, everybody. I figured I would touch base with you guys. I'm sitting outside on my lunch break, so I thought I would, you know, hit you up. I am reading The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa, and I'm loving this book. I had very mediocre expectations going into it because a lot of the bigger booktubers, especially like ones that read a lot of romance, were giving this like 3.5 stars. So I have very mediocre expectations, right? I was like, it's gonna be a middle of the road, but I kind of love it. I have only read one other thing from Mia Sosa, and it was an Audible original, like short story almost. It was a novella, but it was less than 100 pages. And it was cute and funny, but it didn't have any like substance to it, so it wasn't really something that I could really like, I don't know, review and like compare to a real novel. But I love this. This has a main character that is from Brazil. So it's talking a lot about Brazil. It's talking about Brazilian food, Brazilian culture. And like, I am here for it. I'm loving it so much. So yeah, this could potentially be a 5-star read. So I'm about 50% of the way through it. I would love to finish it up today. I'm really enjoying the audiobook. I think it's very well produced. It's got 2 narrators, which I really love, in a dual POV, which thank God it's not a single POV romance. After like a couple of those in a row, it was not my favorite thing. So anyways, I'm gonna get back to reading, but I just thought I would check in like a new location that I haven't been in. We'll see if the audio works though. Hello. So I have finished The Wedding Crasher by Mia Sosa, and I am giving it 5 stars. I loved this book. I loved the Brazilian family. I loved all of the like the different references to like different foods and stuff like that. And honestly, it made me miss Brazil so much. But yeah, I love this. I definitely think that the family aspect added to how much I loved this book. I also really liked the fact that it was kind of more like friends to lovers, fake dating type thing, rather than enemies to lovers, which I think is her first book, is more the hate to love. And so I think if you liked that trope, maybe you would like that book more than this, because I definitely have seen some mixed reviews about this one. But I loved this one. This was so great. I texted both Rye and Aoife about this, who both like know how much I love Delilah Green, and they both also love Delilah Green. And I was like, you know what? This actually might, emphasis on might, be better than Delilah. Okay, so here's the thing. It's not gonna beat Delilah. In the grand scheme of things, in this ranking, it's not gonna beat Delilah, but it's definitely going to come in a close second, and I'm really, really happy that I read this. This one, like, of all of the authors that I've read from, especially like the ones, technically this is the first time I read an Audible original. It was a very short novella, but this is the first full-length novel that I have read from Mia, and I went and bought The Worst Best Man off of Pengo, because I definitely want to read more from her. I'll read anything else that she comes out in the future. This was a good time. So there's that. Next up, we are going to be reading One Night on the Island by Josie Silver. This one is different. Very different than The Wedding Crasher. I don't know where my physical copy is right now. Honestly, can't find it. Can't be bothered to find it. I'm actually listening to it on audio, and the audiobook is pretty good. It has 2 different narrators, 2 different points of view. I am very confused about this book, though, because I'm about 20% of the way in, and it's already been more than one night on the island, and also he's married, so I don't know what's going on there. How is this a romance if he's married? I don't know. We'll find out, I'm sure. The thing is that coming off of The Wedding Crasher and, like, the family just being, like, pure chaos and wonderful, to going to One Night on the Island that is completely, like, prim and proper and uses words like civilization. It's such a difference in book style that it's jarring a little bit. Not saying that it's anything bad, but it's definitely different. So today I finished up One Night on the Island by Josie Silver. I'm giving this one 3 stars. And I'm very hesitant to, like, really talk about this book in, like, the context of this video, because I think that there were parts of the book that really weren't a romance, and then there were parts of the book that really were a romance. So, like, this book really just tried to do a lot of things. It really was, like, trying to be these 2 characters doing this mental health reset, but then it was, there's only one bed trope. And, like, it tried to, like, reel in romance readers with that only one bed trope, but I don't think that it did it justice. I think it kind of did it a disservice. So I don't know how I feel about this. This book, like, the atmosphere was amazing. This book was, like, it takes place on this, like, little remote island in Ireland. And it was great. I honestly don't know how I feel about the characters. Cleo, I think, felt kind of very snobby, very like almost whiny, and like always getting her own way, and so like everyone else should, like, you know, drop whatever they're doing to help her. And Mac, the main character, had been separated from his wife for over a year, but still was, like, acting like he was married to her, even though, like, she had moved on. And it was this very, like, toxic monogamy. Oh, I'm gonna save my marriage, but then also there's a hot woman that's in my house. Like, it felt real weird, and I don't know how I felt about it. So that's where we are on this. I'm calling it a romance for this book. We're going to be putting this one in 8th place. So I gave Things We Never Got Over 3 stars, but that was kind of a higher 3-star. This is definitely a lower 3-star. I didn't care if the characters ever got together. The way that it ends is, like, it's very last minute. It's very rushed at the end. And we were getting to the end, and I was like, is there going to be a happily ever after? Because, like, that is also the tenet of a romance. You cannot have one without it. So then my rating would have been affected by that. But then, like, when it happened, I was like, okay, like, great. I would have been happy either way, honestly. So I'm on to my last book. I'm on to Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. This has been fun so far. I decided to pick it up on audio right after I finished One Night on the Island. This one definitely feels more in the vibe of The Wedding Crasher than One Night on the Island, for sure. We have this big Indian Punjabi family that is part of her kind of inner circle, with, like, all of her aunts trying to help her. Essentially, she needs to be engaged so that her dad will give her inheritance money so that she can buy her mom's house, because her mom passed away. And then he also needs to be engaged to get an investor for his community center. The beginning of it was super cringe, and I didn't really like her at first. I thought that she was, like, it was a bit much, let's be honest. But I am a little over halfway through this already, and I'm really enjoying it. I think that these sex scenes are God tier. They are so spicy. This one probably is one of the more spicier books that I've read in this list of books, at least the ones that I have read recently. Obviously, Katie Robert is on this list. But yeah, we'll see how far along we get into this. Right now, it's sitting at, like, more than a middle of the road book. So that's good. Hopefully it ends well. This video is supposed to be finished by tomorrow. So we have some reading to do. Will it happen? We don't know. Hello, I am coming to you because I have finally finished the 12th book of this project, the 10th book that I had to read for this project, Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. I think I'm going to end up giving this 3.5 stars. It's not the best thing I've ever read. I don't know if that is because of, I've just read so much romance in the past few weeks that I might be a little bit burned out, because I did read most of these, back to back. So there was a lot of romance that I read in the month of July. So that could be playing a part into how I feel about this book. I do think everything that I said kind of stands as far as why this book is. I mean, it's good. And I think that if you don't read a ton of romance, this could be a really fun one. It definitely deals with a lot of cultural aspects. So that was really interesting. And there's a really different take on marriage in general, but specifically arranged marriages versus love marriages, and how different generations see those. So I think it was interesting. It's definitely not something that I'm as familiar with. So that's great. What I didn't love about this book, especially as we got along towards the end of the book, was how heavily we relied on miscommunication. Honestly, if the main characters would have just sat down and had a conversation, the last 25% of the book wouldn't have needed to happen. And that's kind of frustrating when an author does that, when they're just they're trying to extend a book, they're trying to have a third act conflict, but instead of actually creating a unique conflict between the characters, they just go into this, they both actually like each other, but because it's fake dating and we set these parameters, we can't like each other, so I'm going to, wall myself off, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to distance myself. I don't want to say it's lazy, but it is something that is done a little too much in fake dating trope romances. That reason, it ended kind of with that, not as great feeling. With that said, that's 12 books, 10 of which I read for this video, and that is a lot. I'm definitely going to be reading some fantasy after this. Let's take a look at the Goodreads rankings versus the rankings that I gave. They're very different. They're very, very different. Obviously Delilah Green couldn't be beat, but that was down at the bottom of the list. The Wedding Crasher, down at the bottom of the list, and those are my favorite books. And again, a lot of that is just because of how Goodreads does their rankings, does their lists, and not always are they the highest rated books. They're just the ones that are the most shelved. For example, the ratings on this are not very different. Reminders of Him, which, if you remember, Goodreads had that ranked as number 1, has a 4.54, whereas Delilah Green has a 4.22. So the number is not that much different. However, Reminders of Him has 450,000 ratings, and Delilah Green has less than 20,000. So there's a big discrepancy there in the number of ratings. What did I gain from all of this other than an overload of romance? I don't know that Goodreads can be trusted when it comes to these lists. I don't think that they were accurate in the slightest. If we look at this list versus the ones I just read them all. I have my own definitive ranking, so I don't think this is a very good, very accurate rating. Especially because Goodreads likes to keep how they do their ratings and rankings very secret. They don't share a lot of that. So really, we don't even know how that algorithm works. What would I have liked to see different on this list? I definitely would have liked to see more authors of color on here. I would have loved to see some diversity in sexuality and different types of romances rather than just cis-het romances, with the exception of Delilah Green. There are some great romances that came out this year with trans characters, with ace characters, with demi characters. There are some great romances that came out this year, and for this to be the collection of best summer romances, it seems a little bit behind the times if we think about what's really trending specifically on BookTube. Obviously, BookTube is a very small portion of the bookternet as a whole and readers as a whole, but as a content creator, as a reviewer, it's my job to make my opinions known. So I don't think that Goodreads did a great job with this list. I don't think that they curated it well. at all. I'm not super trusting of them. Not that I was before, but this proves it. Okay, if you're feeling chatty, let me know down in the comments below if you have read any of these books and which one was your favorite. And if you're not feeling chatty, you can put some hearts down below, whatever your favorite color is. That's all I have for you today. If you're new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little red button that you can do so down below the video, and all of the other links to my social media will be in the description below if you would like to be my friend on any other platform. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.